Chosen one, anchor your spirit to what I'm about to say. That smile you've been fighting to keep off your face for the last few days, let it come. I know something shifted this week. The atmosphere around you doesn't just feel different, it feels lighter, like someone opened a window in a room that had been sealed shut for months. Maybe you were walking to your car yesterday and caught yourself humming a song you hadn't thought about in years. Or maybe you woke up this morning before your alarm, not with anxiety, but with something you almost forgot existed: anticipation. Perhaps you found yourself laughing at something small, something that wouldn't have even registered a month ago, and you stopped mid-laugh wondering where that sound came from. The enemy has been working overtime this week for one reason and one reason only. He's trying to convince you that what happened was luck. It all clicks into focus today. The confusion, the wondering, the second-guessing. But here's the part that's about to change everything. What you think was a small decision was actually the moment that made God laugh with joy. Think back to that moment 3 days ago when you chose obedience over comfort. When you did the thing that made no sense to your flesh, but felt right to your spirit. You thought it was insignificant. You thought nobody noticed. But that moment, that specific act of faith, disrupted plans that had been in place for years. You didn't just obey God. You shocked him with your courage. You did not find this message by random chance. The algorithm did not deliver this to your screen. The Holy Spirit did. This is a scheduled celebration that heaven has been planning since the moment you said yes. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal the exact moment this week when your obedience sent shockwaves through the spiritual realm. I'm going to show you what happened behind the veil when you made that choice. And I'm going to give you the declaration that seals this victory and opens the door for what comes next. Do not scroll past this. The version of you that's been waiting for confirmation. This is your moment. If you leave now, you leave before the applause. You've been carrying this strange feeling for the last 72 hours. Not anxiety, that's what makes it strange. You're used to the weight of worry, the familiar pressure of wondering if you're doing enough, being enough, moving fast enough. But this week, something shifted. You feel suspended, but not in fear. You feel suspended in possibility. And in this space of possibility, the enemy has been whispering a familiar lie. He's telling you not to get your hopes up. He's replaying your history in your mind, reminding you of all the times excitement turned to disappointment. He's telling you that whatever good thing you're sensing is probably too good to be true. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. Zephaniah 3:17 says, "The Lord your God is in your midst. The mighty one will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing." Listen to that promise. He will rejoice over you with singing, not tolerance, not patience, not begrudging acceptance. Rejoicing with singing. The enemy wants you to believe that God's response to your obedience is measured, careful, conditional. But that is not what happened this week. What happened this week was celebration. The hesitation you felt before you made that choice. That was your flesh recognizing that this decision would cost something. The peace you felt after you made it. That was heaven recognizing that this decision would change everything. You think what you did was small. You think your act of faith was insignificant compared to what others do, what others sacrifice, what others overcome. But let me reframe your reality right now. Size doesn't matter in the kingdom. Timing does. Your obedience didn't just please God, it surprised him in the most beautiful way. You chose faith when fear made more sense. You chose trust when doubt had all the evidence. You chose to move when everything in your natural mind said, "Stay still." And that choice, that specific moment of courage, made both heaven and hell take notice. Heaven smiled. Hell scrambled. The lightness you feel isn't the absence of struggle. It's the presence of victory. You're not waiting for your breakthrough anymore. You're walking in it. But here's where it goes deeper than you realize. That moment when you made the choice, when you said yes to what your spirit knew was right, you weren't just being obedient. You were breaking a pattern that had been operating in your bloodline for generations. Imagine your family tree, not just as a record of names and dates, but as a complex network of spiritual currents, invisible threads weaving through time, carrying not only physical traits, but also subtle leanings, predispositions, and even unspoken burdens. Perhaps it was a generational tendency toward fear, a recurring cycle of scarcity, a persistent struggle with self-worth, or an inherited inability to fully embrace joy. These aren't just personality quirks. These are ancestral echoes, deeply etched spiritual grooves that dictated choices for those who came before you. Think about it. How many people in your family have stood at the exact crossroads you stood at this week? How many of them felt that same inexplicable pull towards something greater? That same divine invitation to step out of the familiar, the predictable, the seemingly safe, and into the vast, unknown expanse of God's perfect will. And how many of them, facing that same daunting precipice, chose the perceived security of the known, the safety of their comfort zone, over the audacious call to surrender to a higher purpose? They opted for the well-trodden path, however barren, rather than the narrow gate leading to abundant life. But you, my friend, were different. You didn't just choose differently than your immediate circumstances suggested, defying the logic of your present challenges. You chose differently than your entire history predicted, shattering the mold cast by generations of inherited patterns and limitations. You stood as a living testament to a new way, a spiritual pioneer, charting a course that had been bypassed for too long. That's why this victory feels profoundly different, deeply resonant, unlike anything you've experienced before. It's not a superficial win. It's a seismic shift in the spiritual landscape of your lineage. It doesn't just belong to you in isolation. It belongs to everyone who comes after you. Consider the profound implications. Your children, if you have them, and their children's children, will never have to contend with the precise battles you've fought and overcome. The spiritual DNA of your family, once burdened, has been liberated. Your lineage just shifted directions, like a mighty river that has finally found its true, unobstructed course after centuries of winding through dry riverbeds. The ripple effect of your single act of obedience is literally changing the future for generations yet unborn, releasing them into a destiny unmarred by the chains you've broken. And this is where most people miss what's really happening in the spiritual realm. They mistakenly believe that breakthrough is about acquiring something new, accumulating more blessings, or experiencing an addition to their already existing life. But what happened to you this week wasn't about accumulation. It was about profound divine subtraction. It was about the shedding of unnecessary weight, the removal of spiritual burdens you'd been carrying so long they had become an almost invisible part of your identity. This burden, this oppressive weight you had grown so accustomed to, perhaps even identifying with it as just who you are, that you forgot it was never truly supposed to be yours. It finally lifted. It wasn't replaced by something lighter. It was simply completely gone. Can you feel it? This is why you've been walking differently, with a subtle lightness in your step, a newfound buoyancy in your spirit. It's why the world around you seems to have burst into more vivid colors, as if a spiritual filter has been removed from your eyes, allowing you to see the divine beauty woven into the tapestry of everyday life. It's why conversations feel less heavy, less fraught with unspoken tension or unresolved issues, allowing for genuine connection. And yes, It's why your sleep has been deeper, more restorative, more peaceful than it's been in months, as your soul finally finds rest from the long vigil it has kept. You're not becoming some entirely new, unrecognizable person. Rather, you are becoming, or perhaps more accurately, reclaiming, who you've always been underneath all that accumulated weight, beneath the layers of expectation, fear, and ancestral programming. You are emerging as the authentic, unburdened self, the soul God intricately designed before the world began to leave its marks. But let me show you something that will truly take your breath away, something that transcends our linear understanding of time and consequence. The moment you chose to align with God's voice, that quiet, persistent whisper in your spirit, instead of succumbing to the loud, insistent logic of fear, you didn't just change your future. In a profound spiritual sense, you reached back and changed your past. Think of every tender prayer your grandmother, with her hands clasped and eyes closed, whispered over you in the middle of the night when you, as a child, couldn't sleep, battling unseen anxieties. Remember every time your mother, burdened with worry over your direction in life, knelt and fervently asked God to intervene, to guide your steps, to protect your heart. Recall every solitary moment when you yourself felt utterly lost, crying out in desperation for guidance, for a sign, for a lifeline from the heavens. All of those prayers, those earnest cries spanning decades, just got their answer. Not in some distant, ambiguous future, not in a theoretical tomorrow, but right now, this week. In this very moment of your breakthrough, a divine tapestry of time has been rewoven. What you're experiencing isn't merely the beginning of your blessing, a fresh start from nothing. It is, in fact, the culmination of decades, perhaps even generations, of steadfast intercession on your behalf. It is the spiritual harvest of countless seeds of faith, sown by those who loved you, seen and unseen, known and unknown. Your victory is their vindication, a testament to the power of persistent prayer across the ages. And here's what's coming next that you absolutely need to be prepared for the enemy is a master strategist of the mind. He is about to launch a relentless campaign to convince you that you don't truly deserve this profound shift, this divine intervention. He will conjure up the ghosts of your past, remind you of every mistake, every wrong turn, every moment when you knowingly chose your own flawed way over God's perfect plan. He's going to parade your imperfections before your spiritual vision, attempting to cast a shadow of doubt over your newfound freedom. He's going to try to make you believe that this breakthrough is merely temporary, a fleeting moment of grace, that it's going to be snatched away as quickly and arbitrarily as it came, leaving you more desolate than before. But that, my beloved, is simply not how God operates. He is not a fickle master, easily swayed by the shifting sands of our human performance. When he decides to move in your life, when he sets his divine intention, he does not change his mind because of your past errors or perceived unworthiness. No, he changes your future decisively and permanently because of the boundless, unchanging, unfathomable depth of his love. His love is not a reaction to your perfection. It is the very source of your potential. The decision you made this week wasn't just about this particular week, this single moment in time. It was a foundational choice that reverberates through every week that's coming, every month, every year, for the rest of your life. You didn't just choose obedience in one fleeting moment. You chose a new trajectory, like resetting a spiritual GPS to a higher destination. You chose a new default setting for your soul, a baseline of faith and trust. You chose a completely new story, one written by grace and empowered by divine purpose. And this is where we get to the part that most people aren't ready to hear. A truth so simple yet so revolutionary, it often eludes even the most devout. The reason your obedience shocked heaven wasn't because God, in his infinite wisdom, somehow doubted you or his own capacity. It was because for the first time in a long time, perhaps even for the first time in your conscious spiritual journey, you believed in him more than you believed in your own limitations. You finally allowed his omnipotence to eclipse your perceived impossibilities. True, radical faith isn't merely about intellectually assenting that God can do impossible things. The demons believe that and tremble. Faith, in its most transformative essence, is about believing that God can and will do impossible things through someone like you, through your imperfect, messy, yet willing vessel. It's the profound recognition that his power is perfected in your weakness, that his strength is magnified through your surrender. That's the earth-shattering revelation that just hit you, isn't it? Not the intellectual acknowledgement that God is powerful. You've always known that, perhaps abstractly. But the deeply personal, intimately humbling realization that God trusts you with his power. That he looked at your life with all its struggles, its perplexing questions, its gnawing fears, its undeniable flaws, and instead of turning away, he leaned in and said with an unwavering conviction, This is the one I can work through. This is the heart through which my glory will manifest. He sees not just who you are, but who you are becoming in him. Coming up in just a moment, I'm going to reveal the one thing, a subtle yet insidious habit, that could still steal this breakthrough from you. And let me assure you, it's not what you think. It operates far more subtly than external opposition. So stay with me, lean in, for this insight is crucial for the ongoing stewardship of your new season. But first, before we dive into that critical warning, you need to understand the astonishing orchestrations that unfolded in the invisible realm, the very moment you chose courage over comfort, conviction over convenience. While you were wrestling with doubt, questioning whether you truly made the right decision, whether you had heard correctly, whether you were brave enough. Spiritual forces that had been assigned to your delay for untold seasons received new, immediate orders. Imagine a celestial command center, buzzing with activity, redirecting energies and assignments. While you were wondering if God really heard your cries, if your whispers reached his throne, angels that had been patiently waiting in position, perhaps for years, finally received unequivocal clearance to move, to act, to execute the divine plan. Your breakthrough, then, wasn't some spontaneous eruption that created activity in heaven. No, your breakthrough was the glorious result of profound strategic activity that had already been set in motion long ago, orchestrated with divine precision. Your choice merely unlocked what was already ordained. The prayers that seemed to go unanswered, the fervent petitions that appeared to vanish into thin air, weren't ignored or forgotten in the archives of heaven. They were being strategically stored, like precious treasures in a divine vault, awaiting the perfect alignment of your readiness and God's perfect timing. The doors that seemed permanently closed, bolted shut against your hopes and dreams, weren't truly locked with an unyielding mechanism. They were being held shut by unseen hands until you, in your newfound confidence and clarity, were ready to walk through them with the unwavering conviction of someone who knows they inherently belong on the other side, not as an intruder, but as an heir. This is precisely why the enemy fought so relentlessly, so fiercely, against your decision this week. He knew something you didn't know in the moment of your struggle. He knew that this wasn't just about one isolated choice, one singular moment of obedience. He understood the profound, cascading effect this decision would have. He knew this was about a destructive pattern breaking, a cycle of limitation finally ending, a spiritual season definitively shifting, ushering in an era of unprecedented grace and favor for you and your lineage. He recognized the seismic spiritual tremor your courage created. And now comes the part that changes everything, reframing your entire perception of what's next. What you think you're still waiting for, the next level of achievement, the next tangible blessing, the next grand breakthrough. It's not actually coming next, as a future event to anticipate. It's here now. The profound shift you feel within your spirit, the palpable lightness, the renewed perspective, the burgeoning hope. This isn't merely preparation for something better. This is something better. This is the fulfillment, the manifestation, the very thing you've been yearning for. You've been so deeply conditioned, both by personal experience and cultural narratives, to believe that good things come slowly, that blessings arrive only after long, arduous seasons of waiting, that breakthrough is a gradual, painstaking process. But that is not what transpired for you this week. That narrative, that limiting belief, has been shattered by divine intervention. What happened to you this week was instant. It was complete. It was final. Like the tearing of a veil or the shattering of chains, its effect was immediate and total. The version of you that was perpetually stuck, caught in a loop of indecision and self-doubt, the one who was questioning every step, wondering if God had somehow forgotten your very name amidst the vastness of creation, that limited questioning version doesn't exist anymore. It has been shed like an old skin, leaving behind the true resilient self. And this isn't because you single-handedly changed yourself through sheer willpower or effort. This radical transformation occurred because God, in His sovereign grace, changed your access. He granted you a new key, a new passport to a different realm of possibility. You now have access to conversations you couldn't have before, dialogues that were beyond your previous spiritual frequency or capacity. You now have access to opportunities that simply wouldn't have been offered, wouldn't even have appeared on the radar of the old version of you. Most importantly, you now have access to a profound level of peace, a tranquility of soul that you once believed was reserved only for those who seemed to have their lives more impeccably together than you ever could. This peace is not the absence of trouble, but the presence of God in the midst of it. But here's the part that's going to challenge everything you think you know about how this spiritual economy truly works. The reason you have this unprecedented access now isn't because you finally managed to do something perfectly right, ticking every spiritual box. No, the reason is far more profound. It's because you finally stopped doing something profoundly wrong. You stopped agreeing with the insidious voice, that inner critic, that spiritual adversary, which constantly told you that you weren't ready, that you lacked the necessary qualifications, that you were insufficient. You stopped partnering with the pervasive, self-limiting narrative that insisted you needed more time, more preparation, more proof, more spiritual gold stars to validate that you could handle what God, in His infinite generosity, truly wanted to give you. You disengaged from the lie that held you captive. The thing that was truly blocking your progress, that was impeding your divine flow, wasn't ultimately your past failures. It wasn't your myriad mistakes, however grievous. It wasn't even your deep-seated fears, as paralyzing as they often felt. No, the true, ultimate impediment was your agreement with the lie that you weren't inherently worthy of immediate, unconditional breakthrough and blessing. That silent, often unconscious assent to unworthiness was the real barrier. God never intended for you to earn your way into His blessing, as if it were a wage for your labor. He intended for you to receive your way into purpose, to step into your divine inheritance through grace, simply by opening your hands and your heart to His loving provision. And coming up next, the one pervasive habit, often disguised as wisdom, that could undo everything that just shifted within your spirit, potentially causing you to forfeit this divine momentum. Don't leave before you hear this crucial warning, for it's often the most subtle traps that are the most effective. But first, let me show you something about this precise timing that will undeniably confirm everything you're feeling, anchoring this truth deep within your spiritual core. This breakthrough didn't happen this week by mere coincidence, a random roll of the cosmic dice. This happened this week because this is the exact divinely appointed moment when heaven's eternal calendar and your personal readiness finally, perfectly aligned. The cosmic clock struck the precise hour. You've been mistakenly thinking that you weren't ready, that you were still incomplete for what God desired to do in your life, constantly striving for self-improvement. But the deeper truth is that God has been patiently waiting with an almost aching anticipation for the precise moment when you would stop endlessly preparing for breakthrough, perpetually waiting for some future event, and instead start positioning for it. He waited for you to move from striving to receiving. Preparation, in its essence, is about getting ready for something that might happen, something contingent and uncertain. It carries an air of anxious anticipation. Positioning, however, is about getting ready for something that's already decided, already ordained, already secured in the spiritual realm. It carries an air of confident expectation, a quiet certainty. What profoundly shifted in you this week wasn't just your newfound willingness to obey, though that was a crucial first step. It was your willingness to receive, to open your spiritual hands and heart to the unmerited favor and blessing that God was pouring out. And receiving, dear one, requires a completely different inner posture than earning. Earning implies debt and payment. Receiving implies grace and gift. You can never truly earn your way into God's lavish favor. It is freely given. But you can certainly position yourself, through faith and surrender, to recognize it with clarity and accept it with gratitude when it joyously arrives, like a long-awaited guest at your door. This is precisely why everything feels different now, imbued with a new light, a new rhythm. You're not merely hoping for breakthrough anymore, casting your desires into the ether with fingers crossed. You are actively stewarding it, tending to it like a precious newly planted seed. You're not wondering if God even sees you, if you're visible on his radar. Instead, with a spirit of eager expectation, you're wondering what he wants to show you next, what new vista he's preparing to unveil. And here's the profound truth that's going to anchor this victory deep within your spirit forever, making it unshakable. The pivotal choice you made this week, the one that felt so incredibly uncertain, so fraught with risk in the immediate moment, causing your heart to pound and your palms to sweat. It wasn't actually a binary choice between perceived safety and terrifying risk. It was, in its deepest spiritual reality, a foundational choice between prolonged delay and imminent destiny. Every single day you hesitated, every moment you waited for more external confirmation, more absolute clarity, more manufactured courage, was another precious day that your magnificent destiny waited patiently for you, standing at the threshold, yearning for your embrace. But this week, with a courageous leap of faith, you stopped making destiny wait. You stepped across the line, and destiny rushed to meet you. And now comes the final critical insight, the part that holds the key to preserving what you've just received, the one thing that could steal everything, undoing more profound breakthroughs than fear, more than doubt, more than even direct opposition from other people. It's this, the insistent, often unconscious need to understand before you are willing to proceed. You're going to be powerfully tempted over the next few days, even weeks, to meticulously dissect and figure out exactly how this breakthrough happened. Your intellect will urge you to analyze every subtle decision that led to this moment, to trace every spiritual thread, to reverse engineer the process, hoping to create a reliable formula so you can repeat it, control it, and bottle it for future use. This is the mind's attempt to grasp the ungraspable. But breakthrough, true divine breakthrough, doesn't work that way. It defies logical formulas. Breakthrough works by unwavering childlike trust. And trust, in its purest form, doesn't require exhaustive intellectual understanding. It requires humble, radical surrender. It's letting go of the need to have all the answers and simply leaning into the divine mystery. The very moment you start trying to manage what God is doing, to control the unfolding of His divine plan, instead of simply receiving it with an open heart and spirit, you instantly move out of the effortless, abundant flow of grace and back into the familiar, exhausting realm of striving, of earning, of self-effort. You close the channel. Don't try to intellectualize your blessing. It's a gift, not a puzzle to be solved. Just steward it with gratitude and responsibility. Don't try to explain your breakthrough to a world that often demands scientific proof for spiritual phenomena. Just walk in it, allowing your transformed life to be the living epistle that speaks volumes. Don't try to convince other people that what happened to you was real, defending your experience against their skepticism. Let your vibrant, flourishing life be the undeniable, irrefutable proof, a beacon of what God can do. Tonight, before you drift off to sleep, I want you to place your hand gently on your heart, connecting with that sacred space within you, and declare this truth with me, allowing each word to resonate through your entire being. I receive this breakthrough as a divine gift, not a hard-won reward. I steward this blessing with profound humility, not with debilitating fear. I walk forward into my new trajectory, knowing with unshakable certainty that my obedience has already opened doors I haven't even seen yet, doors of opportunity and favor that await my arrival. I release the relentless need to understand every intricate detail of how this happened, and I joyfully embrace the grace to simply live like it's undeniably real, for it is. What God has shifted in my life this week is permanent, a testament to His faithfulness and an unyielding foundation for all that is to come. To dive deeper into overcoming generational patterns and unlocking your divine destiny, download my free ebook, The Unstuck Path, linked in the description below.